Hello friends, again back to the physiology classroom. Today we will be continuing the discussion on cardiac output factors. And last video I think we have stopped at the muscle pumps which are responsible for the venous return. We said in the skeletal muscle pump that if we take the example of the peripheral veins which are mostly surrounded by skeletal muscle, those skeletal muscle when they are contracting, when they are contracting they are pushing the blood towards the heart due to their contraction. That means they are increasing the venous return. And another factor of the vein itself is the valve present in the vein, which is pushing the blood towards the heart, is pushing blood towards the heart. Okay, and thus increasing the venous return. So once you have those patent functional valves, these functional valves, if these valves are patent, if these valves are patent, they won't allow the backflow of blood. They won't allow the backflow of blood. Okay, they won't allow the backflow of blood, and hence will help in maintaining the venous return. Hence will help in the maintaining the venous return. Okay. Now we also gave you some examples about the traffic policeman standing outside for a long duration of time, and due to that the peripheral pooling of blood is happening, or you are in a in a place where you are standing for a longer time, so that also decreases the cardiac output and causes fainting. Okay. uh, thoracic pump, I told you, I think thoracic pump is that in the thorax there is an increase in the intrathoracic pressure, which which is due to becoming more negativity. That intrathoracic pressure is going towards more negativity because you are expanding the thoracic cage, and that is doing a sort of a sucking action, like you are drinking something from the like you are drinking any fluids, okay, through the straw. So you are generating a negative suction pressure. So with that you are increasing the return towards the heart, towards the right atrium. So you are actually facilitating the venous return. You are facilitating the venous return. Okay. Now I want to discuss that another pump, that was abdominal pump. Okay. So abdominal pump. In abdominal pump, what happens when you are inspiring? See, you can do yourself. Just you inspire. Take a deep breath. What has happened? You have increased the intra-abdominal pressure. I will let you know why. If these are your lungs, and this is the diaphragm. Now you tell me, if you want to bring more air, this is the thorax. Take this as thorax, and this is your abdomen. Okay, this is the abdomen. If you are inspiring a lot of air inside, so that means you should make this compartment bigger. You should increase the thorax compartment so that more air can come inside. That means you should flatten the diaphragm, or you should make it a normal position diaphragm. Should you make it a dome shaped diaphragm, or should you make it flat? You should flatten the diaphragm. See, now if I flatten the diaphragm, what will happen? Your basal regions of the lung will also participate in the they will become flat. What will happen? You will be giving more place to the basal regions of the lungs so that they can take more air and exchange more air, and accommodate that air. So that means what will happen to abdominal pressure? Definitely abdominal pressure will increase, intra abdominal pressure will increase, because before this see, this is on inspiration. Normally what was happening, if you are not inspiring, what was happening, this diaphragm was pushing the lungs, this was pushing the lungs up. That means you were creating more space in the abdomen. Now you are pushing the diaphragm down while you are inspiring, so like this. Okay, so I am holding the breath. That means I am increasing the intra-abdominal pressure in case of inspiration. So that means whenever I inspire, what happens? Intra-abdominal pressure increases. Why? Because diaphragm has went to descent. The diaphragm has descended downwards. which led to the increase. I will give you a trick how to remember. It's simple. Wherever your diaphragm is going, to that region you are increasing the pressure. If your diaphragm is going towards the thorax, that means you are in a dome shape. You are actually increasing the pressure in this compartment. If you are making it flat, pushing it downwards, that is, this becomes flat. So your intra-abdominal pressure will increase, and then you can given compare that the compare the two pressures: intra-abdominal pressure, intrathoracic pressure. If you are increasing one pressure, the other will go down. Simple. It's simple. I hope you understood this. So intra-abdominal pressure will increase when you are doing the inspiration. Listen to my words. Intra-abdominal pressure. But what is happening in the thorax? The thorax is decreasing. You are making it negative. You are making it negative. Are we clear? Because you are expanding the cage and you are also pushing the diaphragm down. Okay, what will happen now? Since you have increased the abdominal pressure, since you have listened to my words, please, since you are increasing the abdominal pressure, what will happen? Your main vena cavas. I hope you know this. See, if I draw the abdomen like this. So you have an inferior vena cava which is running that abdominal vena cava. Okay, and this is the aorta. This is the aorta. So aorta is on this side. So what is happening when you are increasing the pressure? When you are increasing the pressure in the diaphragm during the inspiration, this abdomen, what will happen? The blood which is present in the intra-abdominal blood vessels, the blood which is present in the intra-abdominal blood vessels, they will be pushed towards the heart because you are pressing them. So that means they will be pushed towards the heart. Now you will say, sir, why can't the blood go down? This should be the common sense question, sir. If you are pushing it, blood can also go down. But remember, from histology, we have leg veins. Leg veins have valves. I know. I hope I have explained it so many times. Your leg veins, they have valves. They won't allow the blood to go back towards the. No, they will not allow them to go towards the gravity. So they will push the blood towards the heart. They will push the blood towards the heart. That means they will increase the venous return. Is it clear? Is there any question? So have we understood the factors which are increasing the venous return? See, I was all discussing this question. This concept was about the preload. This concept we are discussing now, which is the major contributor. I taught you we have three contributors, major factors, which are affecting the stroke volume. Number one, we said the preload. Preload means the degree of ventricular filling, or you can also say the EDV, end diastolic volume. Then we told you about the myocardial contractility, that is the inotropic state, isn't it? And then we told you that it is the afterload, which is determining the stroke volume. And afterload is basically what? It is the resistance offered by the systemic vessels to the ventricular output. So your ventricle is connected to all the systemic vessels. So whatever is the status of the vessels here, they will determine the resistance against which this ventricle, left ventricle, has to pump. Okay. Now this factors, I hope you have understood what is maintaining the venous return, what is affecting the venous return. Now I take you to the about something I want to tell about. What was the other pump left? I think we have atrial pump activity and ECF volume also. I told you, isn't it? I told you first there is major factor which is determining the end diastolic filling. That is venous return, atrial pump activity, ventricular compliance. Now venous return itself is dependent on these pumps which are normally functioning in your body, isn't it? So I am taking you to that pump. I think that I have mentioned in the previous video. Can anyone of you let me know? Have I mentioned that thing that in the venous return there are some pumps working which are bringing the blood towards the heart? Okay. Then I should talk about ECF volume. So see, your venous return, whatever is your plasma status. So this is, let me take like this. If I talk about the venous return in terms of ECF volume, I have taught you in the basics of physiology that ECF mostly talking about the blood circulation. Okay. In ECF, we are talking about the vessel status. Whatever is present in the vessels, that is what we call mostly the ECF part. And whatever is the volume of plasma, that will also determine the venous return. If you are decreasing the volume, for example, I got a patient who is having vomiting or who is having diarrhea. So what will happen in the diarrhea? In diarrhea, what you are doing, you are actually expelling every liquid from the body. That means you are decreasing the ECF. That means you are decreasing the extracellular volume, extracellular fluid. That will also decrease the venous return. That will also decrease the end diastolic volume, and that will also decrease the cardiac output or stroke volume as compared to the pregnancy. In the state of pregnancy, what happens? The patient is having a the ECF expansion happens in pregnancy. Let me tell you, normally it's a physiological. In pregnancy, the ECF will expand. ECF will expand. So what will happen? It will increase the cardiac output, and it's but natural that you have to supply the blood oxygen to the fetus. So this is the beautiful thing about physiology of. I will be teaching you in the physiology of pregnancy. Okay, in the last chapter, last topics of this physiology. How this is something I wanted to correlate diarrhea or vomiting. In these cases, you will be having a decreased ECF, and that will also determine the venous return. So I told you yesterday, remember one statement only. Whatever you give me, I will give you that. This is what heart says. Whatever you give me, whatever fluid you are giving me in the return, I will be giving in the cardiac output, provided my heart muscle status is normal, provided every factor, other factor is normal, which will help me in maintaining that rule that you give me, I will be providing that. Okay. Now, sympathetic activity is also having an effect. Now see, I have taught you in the histology, veins are innervated by sympathetic fibers. Veins have sympathetic fibers. And whenever we have a sympathetic activity, what happens? You have to bring more blood towards your heart so that I can give more blood to the peripheral tissues, isn't it? So you have to give this leg muscle. You want to run from the dog. You are in a sympathetic activity. So you need more blood. You need more blood to be sent to the the muscles, your leg muscles. So what does it mean? It means I should increase the venous return. If I increase the return from the muscle, if I increase the return from the muscle towards the right atrium, then only I am able to send the blood from the left ventricle towards this muscle, isn't it? You are giving more venous return, so then only you can. So that means in the sympathetic activity, these veins, they should be having sympathetic nerves. That will make sympathetic nerves. So they should be having sympathetic innervation. So veins have sympathetic fibers. What they will cause? They will release a substance that is called norepinephrine. Okay, they will release a substance called norepinephrine. I will be teaching you in sympathetic nervous system, but here just bear with me. So what will happen once it produces that? What will happen? They will cause an vasoconstriction. They will cause vasoconstriction. Once you have vasoconstriction in the veins, what will happen? More blood will be sent towards the right atrium. More blood will be sent towards the right atrium. I'm talking about the status of the vessels right now in the sympathetic nervous system. Only about the vessels. I'm not talking about every system. What will happen to the brain? What will happen to the heart? Definitely heart rate should increase. Okay. So I'm here talking about what is the effect of the things on the venous return. So I'm taking that part only. Okay. So what happens that in the vasoconstriction? So if we make a flow chart, what happens? This is sympathetic activity. Sympathetic activity will cause what? It will cause vasoconstriction. It will cause vasoconstriction. What will vasoconstriction do? Vasoconstriction will increase the venous return. It will increase the venous return. So this venous return is increasing the preload or increasing the end diastolic volume. And then what will happen? Increased stroke volume or cardiac output. Okay, so this is what is happening in your exercise. This is what is happening in the exercise. Okay. Okay, friends. So if you are decreasing now, let us make it, I am decreasing the sympathetic activity, I am not having any sympathetic activity, what will happen? That won't cause vasoconstriction. That means what it will cause? It will cause vasodilatation. What it will happen? Peripheral pooling increasing. Peripheral pooling has increased. What will happen? Peripheral pooling increases. That means decrease in the venous return. That means decrease in the preload. That means decrease in the end diastolic volume. That means decrease in the stroke volume or cardiac output. All who did this? Who did this all? It was about this peripheral pooling, which was done by your sympathetic. What was the game here? Vasoconstriction, which was done by sympathetic activity, which was done by here it was no sympathetic activity, so that's why this happened. Okay, fine. Now talking about the atrial pump. Talking about the atrial pump. Now I taught you some percentage of ventricular filling is done by the atrial pump, isn't it? So how much was that? Yes. Who can tell us how much was the filling done by yeah, okay, 30%. Okay, approximately 15 to 30% being done by various books have that, but you should know that it's some amount of filling is done by this atrial pump activity. So atrial pump is filling the ventricles at rest because of contraction of the atria. Whenever this amount of blood, this 20% or 30% amount of blood is being filled from the atria into the ventricle, when this amount of blood is being filled towards the ventricle by the atrial contraction, I should make contraction like this, atria is contracted. So what happens? It is called atrial pump activity. Atrial pump activity. Atrial pump activity or contraction. Now see, if anyone asks you, does the atrial pump contribute normally in resting condition? Does it contribute to stroke volume? No. But once you have an increased demand situations, like you are in an exercise or you are in a strenuous activity, you are in a sympathetic stimulation, what will happen? Atria will say, oh, I should give him more blood. He is in need of more blood. What I should do? I should give more blood towards the ventricle so that ventricle can supply more blood towards the periphery. More blood towards the periphery. So that's why atrial pump, it will work in conditions of exercise, it will work in conditions of stress, it will work in conditions of extreme sympathetic activity. Okay, and that too, the atrial contraction will increase not because of anything, but because of sympathetic stimulation. That is the point you have to remember. So once you give it a sympathetic stimulation, and you know sympathetic stimulation will also always be there when there is a emergency condition, when there is a fair flight fight condition, flight condition. In that condition, your atrial pump activity will increase. Atrial pump activity will increase. Now, one factor which is there is the ventricular compliance. I want to talk about the ventricular compliance. Now, if I take the literal understanding of this compliance, normally not contributing so much to the stroke volume. No, normally you are not in need of that blood. But in case of an increased demand, you should have that extra volume of blood. That is the extra volume being filled by the atria. This is common sense. If you think that's a common sense, it may be there, but yeah, mostly it's not contributing, not having that big contribution to the stroke volume. That's what I want to say. It's not contributing, not having that significant contribution as compared to that venous return, isn't it? We have talked about that blood. Majority of the blood is not being supplied by this atrial pump activity, just some amount of blood. But it becomes significant in cases of sympathetic surge or in case of emergency, something like that. Ventricular compliance. Compliance means, if you want to remember, now you get a bigger definitions in the places. They start speaking about compliance is something when you are doing something and that thing is doing something opposite the same way to you. But that's not the definition. I want you to remember just one word about the compliance. Just one word, and that will make your life easy. Stretchability. Compliance means stretchability. How much a thing is stretchable. How much you can stretch a thing, that will be called compliance. That will be called compliance. And we know from the concepts of histology that ventricular cardiac myocyte, isn't it? That is stretchable. That nature is stretchable. Okay, cardiac myocyte, the nature is stretchable. Okay, so normally your ventricular muscle, can I use the word? Your ventricular muscle is compliant. Your ventricular muscle is compliant. Okay, now you have a, if it is compliant, that means it will help in accumulating or accommodating more blood during the phase of diastole. During the phase of diastole, it will help in diastolic filling. It will help in diastolic filling, because if this is the state in the systole of the ventricle, I'm just drawing a ventricle. I don't want to waste time in making diagrams. It's so simple, so easy to understand from small diagrams. Okay, it makes the life easy. So if you make the ventricle to, if you decrease the area occupied by the ventricle right now in the systole, what will happen? You are not filling, you are actually contracting and throwing the blood out from the aorta. But if I take the diastole, I make it like this. So have you actually slowly stretched it? I have stretched it so slowly that I am I am accommodating more blood here. See here, only some amount of blood is being accommodated. So your normal end diastolic volume is around 130 ml, around 130 ml. And if I have any sort of heart disease, I have any sort of heart disease, be it cardiomyopathies, be it any sort of sclerosis of a heart tissue, um, you know heart is not able to remain compliant, it is not following what you want it to be, you want it to get stretched but it is not able to get stretched. So what will happen? That is a pathology. So can I say the end diastolic volume will decrease in case of compliant diseases? If I have a loss of ventricular compliance, can I say I will have a decreased end diastolic filling? Can I say I will have decreased end diastolic volume? Can I say I will have decreased end diastolic pressure? Can I say the final cardiac output will decrease? See how much easy it is to understand. Once you build your concept, then everything starts following. Everything will follow once you know some basics first. Once you know some basics first. So your cardiac output will decrease in cases of a decreased compliance. So decreased compliance, remember one word, decreased compliance will lead to decreased end diastolic volume. That will lead to decreased, let me first add end diastolic filling. That becomes easy for you to remember. So decreased end diastolic filling, decreased end diastolic filling. That will lead to decreased end diastolic volume. That will lead to decreased end diastolic pressure. That will lead to decreased preload. Same thing. and that will actually lead to decreased cardiac output. So I can remember simple: decreased compliance is equal to decreased cardiac output. Decreased compliance is equal to decreased cardiac output. Are we clear? Okay. Now I will tell you a scenario, okay, to make your life easy and you will enjoy studying it. See, let me give you some diseases, okay, so that we can understand much better. Since it is a physiology class, so I don't want to teach, but it's important to teach you some relevant factors, relevant things in which places it will happen. You just need to know the names of the diseases and how it is happening. The full details you will be learning in second year pathology. Okay, how heart disease is happening, what is happening. So normally you are saying, again starting with that line, normally we are saying my heart muscle should be compliant. But if you are restricting the heart muscle to get compliant, if you are restricting its expansion, if you are restricting, see, it wants to expand, but you are not allowing it to expand. You are not allowing it to expand. That means you are restricting its distension. That means you are restricting the distension in case of a decreased ventricular compliance. So that means you are putting some pressure outside. Some pressure is there from the outside, which is not letting it to expand. Some people in this world who are not letting you to fly, who don't let you fly, who don't want you to expand. Now some people around you, you may have seen, they don't want you to fly. What is that pattern? That is a compliance. They want to decrease your compliance, your stretchability. So what will happen? You will have a decreased, if I have something around this, I have something around this. Now I tell you, my heart, this is surrounded by what? A pericardium. Heart is surrounded by pericardium. Okay. And in the pericardial cavity, I have pericardial fluid. I have pericardial fluid. Now this pericardial fluid is not so much, it's just some mLs, which is normally letting your heart to, undergo decreasing that friction, decreasing that, during the expansion, letting you to smoothly function the heart, letting the heart to smoothly function. I'm not discussing that, okay, just giving you a relation. Now what will happen is, if this fluid becomes more, if I have more fluid in the pericardial cavity, what will happen? See, I'm increasing the fluid here. Now guys, see, in the pericardial cavity, I am filling the fluid. The amount of fluid is increasing. This condition is called pericardial effusion. Pericardial effusion. In case of a pericardial effusion, and that too, if it is a fibrinoid necrosis, that I don't want to speak. So what will happen is, the fluid increases in excess. The fluid will increase in excess in the pericardial cavity. What will happen to the intrapericardial pressure? Decrease or increase? What will happen to the pressure in this pericardium cavity? It will increase. The intrapericardial pressure will increase. So pericardial effusion, more amount of pericardial effusion, what will happen? You will increase the intrapericardial. We are talking about this space, guys. We are talking about this space around the pericardium, this pericardial cavity. Okay. So you are increasing the intrapericardial pressure. Once we increase the intrapericardial pressure, that is in the pericardial cavity, what will happen? It will prevent the ventricular expansion. It won't let it expand. See, my ventricle, the blood is coming inside. The blood is coming inside. But when the blood is coming inside, it's not able to stretch it. The ventricle is not remaining compliant. Why, sir? Because this is putting an opposite pressure on this, because the fluid is more. The fluid is more in the cavity. That's why you are not able to fill, and that is what happens in the pericardial effusion. Now, what will happen to the end diastolic volume? Will it increase or decrease? So this will lead to decreased end diastolic filling. This will lead to decreased end diastolic volume. That will lead to decreased end diastolic pressure, and then finally going in that way, decreasing your cardiac output. Finally decreasing your cardiac output. So was it a restrictive scenario or not? Was it restrictive scenario? Yes, it was restricting the expansion of the ventricular chamber. Ventricular chamber. Or I can give you, in case of cardiac tamponade. I give you an example. What happens? I am sitting in an emergency. Okay, I am sitting in an emergency, and there is a case that a person was driving. Okay, it's a long ago case in the emergency. The person is driving a car, and while driving, this is the car. Take it as a front. Okay, this person is driving. Okay, he is driving. He is driving the car, and a truck is loaded with rods. A truck is loaded with rods. Okay, this truck is moving, and this truck is having these rods. What happens suddenly? The person's brake fails, and this truck suddenly stops. What happens? This rod directly pierces the chest, directly into the heart. Directly into the heart. Or somebody was stabbed. Somebody was stabbed with a knife into the heart. This is a cardiac tamponade. What will happen? There will be more amount of bleeding in the pericardial cavity. Massive pericardial effusion will happen. That will also lead to the decreased end diastolic filling. That will lead to, that will be a dangerous situation. What will happen? The stroke volume will not be there. Total stroke volume will go. There will be no stroke volume. No, so much reduced stroke volume will be there. Why, sir? Because, sir, all blood has come into the pericardial cavity, and it's not, complying with the ventricular compliance. The ventricular compliance is, affected. So, can we understand now two examples in the cardiac tamponade or in the pericardial effusion? What is happening? I have given a clinical correlation. Okay, I have given a clinical correlation to make it easy for you. So what should you think in your brain when you are understanding this ventricular compliance? Just one word. What do you understand while treating the ventricular compliance? Stretchability, very nice. So whatever is not letting it to expand will be actually affecting its venous return, cardiac filling. The filling will not be able there. I will be teaching you. See, here I am concerned more about the ventricles. Why? On the venous return. Okay. Filling, I am concerned here about the filling. Okay. But I will be later on in further discussions of cardiac physiology. I will be telling you how it is affecting the body, how it is going to affect the brain, how it's going to affect the other peripheral organs which are at the back side, which are connected at the back of this. Okay. So, so I think this is all we have finished yesterday's headings. So is there anything left from the venous return, guys? Is there anything left? Now let us take our discussion on the second factor, which is controlling the cardiac output, that is myocardial contractility. Or I can say the inotropic state. Inotropic means I am talking about the contractility state. Inotropy, whenever you watch a word, inotropy means, or I don't know, they say inotropic means contractility, means we are talking about contractility. First, I will say this word so that we make a concept. Second thing, this is inotropy. If I say a word inotropic agent. What do we mean by inotropic agent? Inotropic agent means an agent which brings about contractility. Which brings about contractility. That means there should be things which should be increasing the contractility and which should be decreasing the myocardial contractility. If a thing is increasing myocardial contractility, so I have two agents. If it is increasing the myocardial contractility, this agent will be called positively, please write this, positively inotropic agent. Positively inotropic agent. If an agent is decreasing myocardial contractility, I will say it is a negatively inotropic agent. Negatively inotropic agent. Increase positive, decrease negative. Something increasing positively, positive agent, decreasing negative agent. Who will actually say that what is myocardial contractility? Who will actually determine the myocardial? This was about the agent. This was a state. It will depend how much amount the mass is. Like if I have a mass, a muscle mass, if I have a muscle mass, if I have a nice muscle mass, I will be able to lift more things. I will be able to lift more weight in the gym, isn't it? So that means my heart muscle, if the ventricular mass is nice, it can contract effectively. And there will be also some hormones which will be telling it to contract. That means that is also a factor which is guiding the contractility. And whatever is your autonomic nervous state, let me write those things. So who will actually, what should I write? I should write myocardial contractility. I'm not writing contractility. I should write myocardial because I'm talking about the heart. Myocardial contractility will depend on, number one, it will depend on, I should not write proportional. I should say depend on. It depends on, number one, the muscle mass of the ventricle. Second, autonomic activity. Third, hormone levels or hormone concentration. Number four, drugs. Number five, heart rate. And also blood, humoral substances. Okay, let me write humoral substances. Other humoral substances. Okay, other humoral substances. Now, if I, how to make you understand? See, I will make like this. Can I say if I draw a graph, if I draw a simple graph, I will be taking you to graphs later on, but here I want to make you understand. This is the end diastolic volume and this is the stroke volume. This is the stroke volume. Okay, this is the stroke volume. This is the end diastolic volume. Now I'm making a graph like this. Let me take a graph. Not this, not like this. First it will increase like this. And then what will happen? This. Okay, now see. Whatever is the stroke volume, that stroke volume is increasing with the end diastolic volume, isn't it? See, this is increasing, this is increasing. See, this is increasing. This is increasing, 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 this is increasing. Means we are increasing. Progressively we are increasing. That means this state will also tell us what is the end diastolic length. This will also tell us what is the end diastolic length. But there is a limit being reached here. This limit is called a physiological limit. A physiological limit is being attained where you are having a plateau phase. But majority what is being followed is once you are increasing the end diastolic volume, you are increasing it is correlating is correlating with the having a sort of a, can't say, but yeah, more nearer and proportionality, proportionality, a direct relationship. Okay, this is understood now. Yeah, very nice, very nice. If I give a positive inotropic agent, will that increase the stroke volume or not? Will that increase the stroke volume or not? Very nice. For that, I want to show a different graph. I want to show a different graph. Okay. So I want to tell you same graph I will be using, but I want to make it in a, I want to make a width for that. The width will help me in understanding more. So this was the graph, same graph, stroke volume and diastolic volume. But I'm going to make like this. And diastolic volume, stroke volume, and diastolic volume, stroke volume. Now, if I give a positively inotropic agent, meaning thereby this positive inotropic agent will stimulate the cardiac contractility. Will that shift this curve? See, I'm going to make the curve. Will that shift the curve? If this is the curve, will it shift more towards this left side or the right side? You have to take now your right side and left side. Don't take the patient side, left side. Will you shift this graph more towards the left side or more towards the right side? You will shift it more towards the left side, your left side, so that you can achieve a greater stroke volume. And see, you will achieve it at a lesser end diastolic volume. Wow, what a nice thing it has done. You are increasing the stroke volume at a lesser end diastolic volume. Sir, we were reading that in the end diastolic volume, whatever is the end diastolic volume, you will get the stroke volume. But I am telling you, due to the contractility factors, that beautiful thing what the God has bestowed us with, the contractility factor, what you are doing at a smaller end diastolic volume. See, this is the zero. At a smaller end diastolic volume, what you are having? You are having a more amount of stroke volume. So this is what is being done by the positively inotropic agents. What a beautiful concept. That is what is being done by positively inotropic agent. Your positive inotropic agents, what they are doing? They are increasing the stroke volume. Okay. Are we clear? Okay. Now I want to tell another thing. Okay. I want to tell for some minutes. Okay. We will end the class after that. So see, I told you something about this ventricular mass, isn't it? This muscle mass. See, if I decrease the muscle mass, sir, what muscle mass decrease? Sir, we are growing towards we are growing with growing, we are increasing the heart size also. Not that much. I'm saying that, with growth and development, you are having a normal gain in the heart size. Sir, how can this happen? Is something eating the heart? Is something eating the heart that I am decreasing the muscle mass? Not like that. It's not like that. See, what is happening is, I will tell you how it is happening. Now, this is my heart tissue. This is the heart tissue, and every heart tissue is being supplied by its blood supply. If I talk about this major region of right side, it is supplied by the right coronary. I'll be teaching you this in the anatomy and physiology also. And this is being a left dominant circulation anteriorly, left anterior descending artery, left circumflex artery. See, the concept is that if, for example, this is the left anterior descending artery, I will give you a nice example to understand. This is the left anterior descending artery. This is the left anterior descending artery. I am telling you, this left anterior descending artery will be having some branches. Okay, it will be giving some branches later on. Or from this region, this is the left circumflex artery. If, for example, I get a clot here, I get a clot in this region. Will you be able to supply the blood to these regions? If I get a clot, this is being for example, this is only this dominant, LAD dominant area. This is the LAD dominant area. Will you be able to supply the blood here? No. Will you be able to give the nutrients? No. Will you be able to give oxygen? No. Will you be shifting the metabolism to anaerobic? Yes. Will you be decreasing the muscle because the muscle won't function here? This is what is happening in the MI. This is what is the myocardial infarction.